Good morning, beautiful people of the center. As you heard from our host this month, our focus is the power of you. Based on the book by the same title, The Power of You, by Dr. Chris Michaels, who is coming to speak here at our center in 2 weeks' time. And so if you do get the book, you'll be able to get it autographed by him. We began last week with the topic focus, a bigger universe, a greater God, in which we explored the idea that we have an ongoing opportunity to grow our idea of divinity. And the book offers this idea for us to consider that the Creator is kind of like a universal energy, like a universal mind, everywhere present and available to all people all of the time. And for us to explore our relationship to that, we used the phrase from the New Testament, "In him we move and live and have our being," and related it to this idea of an everywhere present Creator and said, in it, in the very mind of creation, is where we move and breathe and think and have our being. Our very mind exists within the mind of the One. And that brings us to this week's topic, which is my mind and how to use it. Your mind, how to use it. And I don't know about you, but I wasn't given a user manual. So we get to learn as we move through life how to use this thing, because if it is the case that we are thinking within the very power that creates, ought we not to be more responsible with how we use it? That's the thought for today's message. So we turn to the chapter on your mind and how to use it to get some instruction from the good doctor. Won't you read this with me? "Whether you know it or not, you have at your command the greatest power known to humankind. It is your mind, and how you choose to use it determines everything in your life." Just everything. Just everything. I was thinking about one of the classes that we teach once or twice a year here. It's called Self-Mastery, because the book that we use in that class is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, in which he talks about how what is happening, reality, is kind of like a dream that is being dreamed up from our minds individually and then also as a group, collectively. So we're collaborating by the use of our mind to produce what is. We're projecting what is out of this incredible power that we have the freedom to use. And it caused me to think about next month's book too, because don't you know, I read many books. Who reads many books at once? Right? Exactly. So I've got many books and I like to read ahead. And next month's book is The Power of Awareness by Neville, an old classic, amazing. And in it he says, humankind's chief delusion is the conviction that there are other causes than our own state of consciousness. Whoa. Our chief delusion, the point where we are most likely to be deluded, is when we think something else is creating reality. Whoa. You know, and then spiritual living would then be about taking responsibility for my mind. In other words, learning how to mind my mind and what it creates, and certainly getting to the point where I dream up a new dream, or even better, to wake up to the fact that it's a dream. Together. Even though many of the world's greatest teachers and spiritual masters have told us so, most people are completely unaware that their thoughts have creative power. Well, certainly not us, right? Except that sometimes we just don't seem to be able to believe it. We forget, yeah. lose track of it. You know, I was at our national conference in Florida, and one of the ministers who spoke with me on a panel, Reverend Patrick Cameron from Canada, he told a story about how many, many years ago at another one of our conferences, the guest speaker was Don Miguel Ruiz. And he got to talk to our people and do a workshop and interact with them. And Reverend Patrick felt so privileged because he got to give Don Miguel Ruiz a ride to the airport. And he reports, I'll see if I can remember this correctly, he reports that Don Miguel said, Reverend Patrick, the problem with your people is that they don't believe it. Whoa. I mean, I really had to look into my heart. I mean, that made an impression on me because there are places where I can find where I don't believe it. Even though I have had countless examples in my very own life of recreating my experience, there is still in me a very strong doubter. Even though I have witnessed countless people recreate their whole lives from the inside out and have a completely different experience of their personality and the circumstances of their lives, I continue to need more evidence. I still have these voices in me, don't you? And I'm learning to say to them a gentle, shh. They is supposed to be the first word, and that they is us, by the way. Right? You, me. Let's read it. They listen to the monkey chatter going on inside their heads, not knowing their thoughts group together to form beliefs, which then cause their experience. They. Monkey chatter. Anybody got monkey chatter? You know, in the book, Dr. Michaels, he talks about the monkey chatter in his own mind. He said he's got a very strong voice, and he's named that voice. He's called it the inner critic. Yeah. Well, it got me to looking at my voices and naming them too. And I have one I would say is the naysayer, or the doubter, the disprover. That's the name of this voice. The one for whom there is never, ever going to be enough evidence. Do you have that one? Hey, and you know, between you and me, I mean, we're together here sharing. It's not just the one voice in there. You know, it's like an unruly mob trying to prove why I am the exception to the rule and my mind is not producing any of the drama in my life. It's all your fault. Right. Not so right. Even though I can very clearly remember when I learned through this teaching, the very first time I learned to stop being terrorized by those voices with the gentle shh, just shh for a moment. And I remember what happened at first. The first thing that happened was they became frantic. The voices, it's like they were sensing the imminence of their demise. And they started to scream louder as I just stayed in the energy of it until they subsided. And then what followed was this tremendous quietness. Even though the monkeys continue to be there. Simultaneously. The monkeys are there. The monkeys there? They're there. Yeah. But I learned that they are not my entire mind. There are other voices in there that are deeply deserving of my attention. And indeed, one particular voice that I became aware of and interested in that spoke a language only my quiet soul had ears to hear. Together. Of course, we all know that every single thought does not itself create. If that were the case, people would be dropping like flies Their heads would suddenly explode because of one passing thought you had while driving on a freeway. Right? Who hasn't had a less than kind thought? Who hasn't wished somebody to be well on the freeway? Yeah. It's not those kind of random thoughts. It would be total chaos. So if you have those thoughts, don't worry about them. Unless they are persistent and they are there all the time. And even in that case, don't worry about them. Just learn to use your mind to begin to interrupt them. Gently interrupt them. See, it's not those random thoughts. It's the persistent, repeated, continuous thoughts that are backed up with the warmth and color of emotion and conviction. Those ones we accept as real and normal, and we live in them. Those ones. There's an energetic difference between thoughts that just keep us spinning our wheels and being stuck where we are, and those that carry us into our greater yet to be. I love Jeeps. I've always had a Jeep since I can remember. And a long time ago in Southern California, when I got my first Jeep, 4-wheel drive, yay, and thought I was the ruler of the world in my Jeep, went four-wheeling in the muddy plains of somewhere and got stuck. And there I was stuck and engaged the 4-wheel drive thinking this will get me out, starting to get nervous. And of course, and the engine starting to get more desperate and the mud starting to fly about. And everything, energy going up, frantic, desperate, paranoid, and nothing happens with that. You don't go anywhere. Because the spinning wheel has got nothing to stick to. There's no traction. And you don't give it anything to stick to by going, wah! So I had to, in a moment of calmness, get out, step away, and give the wheel something to stick to. It's just like my mind, The energy of thinking that keeps me stuck spinning my wheels and not going anywhere is characterized by this: frantic, desperate, urgent, comparing, worried, stressed, jealous. And the thoughts that carry us into a new dream, a new reality, our greater yet to be, are thoughts that are not like that. Together, it's your tendency of thought that forms the belief system that causes your reality. And not only for you, for everybody. We're in this together. We say, my mind is a center of divine activity within the mind of creation, a point of creativity within the mind, but so is yours. So the garden that you're tending is as important. It intersects. We're in it together. There's no way I can live unscathed by your creation and you by mine. Yeah? When people say, why is it that the world that is in the state that it is in? Well, this current dream experience is being woven together by the tendency of all of the thought that is being thunk everywhere. It's the way of things. The combined tendency of all thought, And when we are conditioned to accept the combined tendency of thought, it becomes very normal to us. And when it is normal, and through persistent exposure to that normal idea, then our lives grow out of this. I was thinking about this the other day. I was remembering round about Christmas time, I went to a popular electronics store. Because some of you may know I'm rather fond of technology. I think it's fabulous. what God has created through technology. I like to go and see what's going on there. So I was standing there, and being that it was close before Christmas, they were demonstrating some of the new video game experiences, and there was this whole little kiosk where there was a video, and you could put your gloves on, and there was some sort of 3D interactive thing, and there was an 8-year-old, all rigged up, and he was standing in this 3D environment, and he was killing and slashing and destroying and stabbing and cutting heads off and fighting, and all around him people were standing like this. Nobody was bothered at all. Nobody was in the slightest bit alarmed. It was completely normal. Oh, and when an idea like that becomes normalized, it establishes a standard, which is a box, it's a container, which permits actions that conform to the parameters of the container. Nobody was bothered. And it made me think about that. What do I consider normal, and where does that come from? What dream does that come from? And how does what I consider normal contribute to the mental atmosphere that I carry around with me? Because don't you know, every one of us has a mental atmosphere that is sewn together by our normals. And the mental atmosphere is not visible to the eye, but it's felt. It's what attracts us to some people and repels us from others. Every city has a mental atmosphere. Every nation has a mental atmosphere. And the good news, it says in the book, is that it can be changed. And to change something, it is helpful first to know what it is. So to find out what is your mental atmosphere, you and I can begin asking ourselves questions. For example, what is my theme as I move through this world? What do I regularly, repeatedly think? What's my tendency? Because in that is probably some clues about what I consider to be normal. Or you can ask it this way: what happens inside here a lot? It's going to inform me. Or I can look for it this way: how do I frequently complete the sentence that begins like this? I should, or this one, he or she should, or they should, or the world should, or the government should, or life should, because in there is the information that will help you understand how your dream may be being sourced by this container. It's coming out from that. See, and in my experience, until I can acknowledge that, it's difficult for me to know how to work. Because my theme consists of certain thoughts that I entertain on a regular basis together. Thoughts that you entertain on a regular basis become the mental atmosphere surrounding you. That atmosphere dictates your actions. So the question before us then today is, well, how do I use my mind to change my mental atmosphere? And I think the first step is to be willing to practice interrupting it. To particularly interrupt the mind when it is on unconscious automatic mode, which is a little challenge because if it's unconscious, you don't know. So it's about waking up to the fact that you're asleep. And unconscious thinking is characterized by thinking that's on autopilot, it's very fast moving, and thinking that has unparalleled freedom to go wherever it wants, unsupervised. And some of it, not even mine, just regurgitated. So how do you do it? Apart from the gentle you use practices that allow you to start thinking about your thinking, to investigate it. Some tools such as meditation, which we talked about last month, February, and you can download all of the audio and video for free on our website, www.cslsr.org. It's all free. Or a great method to become aware of your thinking is journaling. And last year in 2013, we did a whole month on how journaling can be used to excavate your thinking. And you can go check in a bookstore, Stepping Stones bookstore, for all kinds of books about journaling. Or another way is to engage with a professional practitioner, to sit and talk with somebody, a spiritual coach, who will help identify where your thinking has got you spinning your wheels. Because sometimes it's hard to see for myself. Usually other people can see it before I can. And then I use practices such as that help me develop awareness. And then the second part of how to change my theme, my spiritual atmosphere, is by mindfully establishing new thought patterns. And to do that, you have to be willing to use your imagination. Because you're going to have to dream outside of the box. You're going to have to take yourself to a place that isn't contained in your normal. You've got to be willing to soar. That's why treasure maps and visualization and all the things that take us out of where we are stuck. Spiritual mind treatment become very, very, very helpful. And in a practical way, one of the things you can do is to literally, physically take yourself out of the environment where everything is normal and place yourself in an environment where you feel and sense the strong difference, the supportive difference of people and activities that are in line with where you want to go and be. We pick it up by osmosis. We really do. But most important is that we get a larger idea. In that book for next month, Neville says that we think from our ideas. You see, you get a large idea, and then the energy of the large idea is where our thinking comes from, and then we go. That's why people who are role models in this, who speak with visionary language that picks us up from where we are and allows us to see beyond the confines of our box, are so important. People who say to us, imagine all the people of the world living life in peace. People who say, I have a dream. Regardless of current circumstances, regardless of what is wrong and what cannot be changed, regardless of that, the language of the dream, of the vision, opens us up to a greater idea, and from that, our thinking comes. The author, Dr. Chris Michael, said, he wished that there was a user manual given to us for our minds when we came to earth. And since there is not, he wrote one. He said, first of all, you really don't have a mind. You use a mind. Isn't that something? The thing you call your mind is really your connection to the one mind, the mind of the creator of the universe. Genius doesn't come from women or men, it flows through them. Love doesn't come from other people in your life, it comes through them. There is only one true source of everything, of genius, of love, and that source is spirit. He says, and there is no off switch, so stop looking for it. He says you can't turn your mind off. Unlike some unreliable internet connections, your mind can never lose contact with the one mind. That's why you can't stop thinking, even in your sleep. Ooh. You are, he says, having a conversation with the Creator that never ever ends. From this conversation, your life experience is created. You will hear voices. You're not going crazy. He says the voices in your mind are real. Learn to listen to one of them in particular so you can tune the rest down to a lower level, because there is a voice in you. It's non-forceful. There is one. The one. And he says, think about things that bring you joy. He says that's the right use of your mind. If you fill your gas tank with water, you won't get very far. The same truth applies to the use of your mind. If you fill it with thoughts of fear, anger, and resentment, you won't get very far in life. You'll stay stuck in neutral, never really moving forward. Stay tuned. More will come. Your mind and the mind of the Creator are inextricably linked. It's always sending you information through the link that is already established. So ours is to take time to listen so that it can guide us every step of our way. And the game of life is rigged. Everything works in your favor. You are not alone, he says. You will never be alone. Within your heart and your mind is the spirit of creation. It dwells within you, and yet it surrounds you and embraces you. And you can never escape its presence. And though it appears that you are separate and alone, my friend, appearances are deceiving. There is more to life than can be realized with your limited human senses. So it occurs to me that's his version of the user manual for your mind and how to use it. But what if the task was given to you to write a user manual for how to use your mind, one that would be given to every child upon their birth? What would you tell them? Let us pray. I invite you to breathe in and exhale, letting your eyes close as we each in our own way turn our thought to that which is divinity, that endless, beautiful, eternal, everywhere present, all-powerful, undivided something in which we move and breathe and have our being. We identify ourselves as being at home in the heart of this presence. That's where we are. Even this prayer, this thought right now happening that we are sharing, backed up with the warmth of our emotional conviction and our sense of acceptance, is happening within the mind of creation. And with respect, then, we are aligning ourselves with the great harmony that is this universe, so that as we move forward into this day, we remain aware, sharply aware of everything that flows through our mind. We exercise our right to choose a more beautiful thought at any moment. We exercise our ability to think something beautiful on behalf of other people. We exercise our minds in the right use of it. In this way, then, we immediately, even now, begin to feel the transformation that rises up. Newness, endless possibilities, endless ideas, new, thrilling creativity surging up within us without any effort whatsoever, for we are in this moment stepping out of the boundaries of previously concealed boxes. We become aware of them, and we are being made free even now. Deep gratitude wells up, a sense of celebration and joy in praying this way. And there's nothing more to do than to trust the law of mind, the spiritual law that governs the universe, and to watch delightedly as we experience our world and our lives as brand new. And so it is.